Welcome back to another episode of the Recharge Zone podcast. I'm your host, Brent, joined by my co-host, Ann-Margaret. Our guest today is Sarah Valdez, EAA STEAM Outreach Educator. And she's been educating students about the Edwards Aquifer throughout our jurisdiction for the past 20 years. Welcome, Sarah.
Glad to be here.
So I'm so happy to have Sarah Valdez here today. Sarah and I used to work together just a couple of years after I started at EAA, almost 10 years ago now. I started with the education team, and Sarah had already been there for a while. So she was there showing me the ropes, how to teach kids about the aquifer, how to visit schools and get our message across. But I know over the years, the program has changed a little bit. So Sarah, would you mind talking a little bit about that, how the program has evolved over time?
Sure. Well, the program actually started about 30 years ago. So before I was even here, there was a teacher's guide that was called Water Conservation in the Edwards Aquifer, and that was in 1981. So that was the Edwards Underground Water District that did that. Since then, it has evolved. We've had everything from lesson plans to curriculum to classroom presentations and costumed characters. We've had music, Edwards Aquifer, salamander songs. We've had dances. But most of our work has been going out to the schools. For the past 30 years, we've gone into so many classrooms and everything from pre-K through college level courses. And everybody's been involved, so it hasn't been just myself or just the educator. As Brent said, he did it. There are several people at the Edwards Aquifer Authority that have gone out into the classroom, and I think it's a highlight of our staff. They love going out and visiting with teachers and visiting with students and spreading the word and sharing the message.
And at one point, you even had like a theatrical program, right, with Doc Edwards and friends.
That's right. We've had videos and cartoons even with Doc Edwards. So we had a character, Doc Edwards, that went out to the schools, and we had a website that had a bunch of games with Doc Edwards and DVDs that we used to send out to the schools. So we've done, like you said, kind of theatrical performances at libraries. So, we're a pretty small staff. We've always been about 100 people, but we've done as much as we possibly can to travel all the way from Uvalde to almost all the way up to Austin to San Marcos and everywhere in between. So we spend a lot of time on the road, and we have a lot of really neat props, and it's really interesting that we're going to have our own facility now. So we'll have even better equipment and even better exhibits and even better displays. So we'll have one central place where everybody can go to learn about the Edwards Aquifer.
Yeah, you're kind of transitioning from a road show to come and see what we have to offer at our place.
Yeah. The Edwards Aquifer itself is almost intangible. We can't ever take people to the Edwards Aquifer because most of it is underground.
Like the magic school bus, get little and you go in there. Yeah, you can't do that.
I wish we could. But this is about as close as we can get to that, to bringing people to the Edwards Aquifer.
And as you mentioned, Brent, so over the years, I've also enjoyed seeing the various ways the education program has worked to educate students, from Karsten, the larger-than-life-size Texas blind salamander mascot that we have, and the learning zones last year that we rolled out on social media as an educational resource for educators and students. So to this exciting partnership with Morgan's Wonderland Camp.
Yes, it's a major opportunity for us to partner with Morgan's Wonderland Camp, and I'm excited for the next chapter in our education program.
Awesome. I am too, Sarah. So can you give us a brief overview of what Morgan's Wonderland Camp is and what the Education Outreach Center is?
Morgan's Wonderland Camp is an ultra-accessible camp for all ages and abilities, with a special emphasis on giving people with physical and developmental disabilities an opportunity to enjoy summer camp-type activities alongside guests without special needs. The EOC, or the Education Outreach Center, is going to be the first permanent facility dedicated exclusively to offering educational instruction and activities.
So how did this whole partnership come about?
It's been a long time in the making. And as we were trying to decide what was going to go into what we call the EOC, the Education Outreach Center, we definitely had to get a lot of input from stakeholders. So we started having meetings about what we wanted the place to be. So we met internally. We had meetings with all of our scientists and several of our different staff members to see what was the story that we wanted to tell. And then we turned that focus outward to stakeholders in the community to see, what do teachers want to learn? What do businesses want to learn? What do parents and families want to learn? So once we got those two perspectives together, then we kind of knew what needed to go into the EOC.
So speaking of that, Sarah, can you help us visualize what kind of educational offerings the EOC is going to have? What are the exhibits going to look like?
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really excited about some of the things that are going into the EOC. For starters, I'll give you kind of a virtual tour if you can. Imagine you walk into this building and the first thing you're going to see is some telepresence robots.
What is a telepresence robot?
So a telepresence robot I've heard described as an iPad on a Roomba. So it's a stand that can move and maneuver through the exhibit. And not only does it move and maneuver through the exhibit or through the gallery, but there will be somebody on staff, a scientist, who will be able to talk to you through the screen. So the screen will be moving all around the exhibit, and it'll have a scientist that you'll be able to interact with. So they'll be able to answer some of your questions. They'll be able to elaborate on some of the exhibits. They'll be able to give you more in-depth information. Yeah, it's almost like having a staff of scientists in the building with you as you're going through the exhibits.
So I could be a telepresence robot.
Sure.
And I've never seen anything like that anywhere else. I mean, kids are going to be like, what? There's a robot following me around and it's actually a scientist and they can actually tell me things about the Edwards Aquifer. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. So, you'll have every experience, every person that goes into the building will have a different experience, I think. So moving on past the telepresence robots, once we get through the telepresence robots, there'll be a front desk, of course. And at the front desk, we'll have the state of the aquifer, which will give you aquifer levels. It'll give you different what the presentations are for the day, what's the schedule, what groups are coming in. We'll have exhibits about the EAA, so all about the Edwards Aquifer Authority, about our mission, manage, enhance, and protect. What does it mean to manage the Edwards Aquifer? What does it mean to enhance the Edwards Aquifer? What does it mean to protect the Edwards Aquifer? And we'll have videos and different things that you can move and turn and twist and look at. We'll have exhibits about the Edwards Aquifer Authority. We'll also have exhibits about the Habitat Conservation Program. So we start breaking it down into all the different subjects about the Edwards Aquifer. The Habitat Conservation wall will have actually aquariums in it. So we'll have Texas blind salamanders, which you'll be able to see swimming around. We'll have fountain darters in there. We'll have certain native species and we'll have non-native species, and we'll be able to tell that story about some of the things that depend on the Edwards Aquifer. I mean, it's 200 million people, right? 200 million people plus all the plants, plus all the animals. So moving past the aquariums, we also have a wall about the geology of the Edwards Aquifer. So you'll be able to see the three different parts, how they work, how water moves through limestone. And of course, we'll have pieces of limestone. We'll have microscopes so people can see things up close. We'll have different specimens that you can look at on big screens. We'll have a cloud making machine, which is like a big drum that you push down on and it shoots up a cloud of vapor. And you'll see how everything starts with a cloud with a drop of water. And then there's the Omniglobe. The Omniglobe is one of our favorite things. It's a 360-degree projection. So it's this big glowing orb in the middle of the room that will be able to project different information such as climate, around the world, precipitation patterns around the world, vegetation patterns around the world, and all sorts of different programs that we can actually program into it so that you can look at anything you want to see around the world in real time. We'll have exhibits on the FRP. We'll have data being fed in from the Field Research Park, which is right next door to us. And students will be able to use some of that data to actually learn and to study. And we also have a demonstration garden. And in the demonstration garden, which we just planted with the help of our very good friends at San Antonio River Authority, we are going to have some of the same plants that we have at the Field Research Park. And so we'll be able to study some of those same things that we're studying there, such as water conservation, soil retention, moisture retention in the soil, So we've got a lot of things going on.
So just to remind our listeners, the Field Research Park, the FRP, is a property right next to the Education and Outreach Center, the Morgan's Wonderland Camp, that it's owned by the Edwards Aquifer Authority, where we're actively conducting research about water quality and quantity and looking to collaborate with other universities and other researchers to improve how we manage water. So it's so exciting that some of that information is going to be put into this building to help folks understand what's going on and with our active research.
I forgot to mention, too, that one of the highlights of the building is also going to be the theater.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, the 3D cave, right?
We do have a 3D program where it's almost like going in underground into the Edwards Aquifer. So the whole building is made to make you feel like you're in a cave. Mm-hmm. So you're underground. It's almost like being in the Edwards Aquifer. So we've left the ceiling dark and as high as we could possibly, get it. But it's dark, and we've got projectors up in the ceiling that are projecting these flowing blue lights. So it makes it look like the entire building is wet. Mm-hmm. But we also have that 3D cave, or the presentation space. It's going to have the seats are going to look like limestone rocks that you can move around and sit on, and we can do presentations in there. We can do play videos in there. We can do whole classrooms in there. So that's going to be a really neat space with mock limestone walls, and so the walls are going to be textured to actually look like you're in a cave.
Well, sign me up. That sounds really awesome.
And the fact that you can educate the kids and the students and even the educators and even the parents that, this education center sits on top of the recharge zone. And the fact that the Field Research Park is right down the road, I think that's great. I'm looking forward to all the EOC will have to offer and the wonderful partnership that we have with Morgan's Wonderland Camp that will help us reach more students and spread awareness for the importance of the Edwards Aquifer. I know you mentioned the garden that the San Antonio River Authority helped us with, and I think you all received an award or a grant, right, to help kind of with the garden and that whole thing. So could you speak a little bit about that one?
That's right. We received a grant from the Alliance for Water Efficiency. And so we were able to purchase all of the native plants, drought-tolerant plants.
Can you let our listeners know about the awesome rainwater harvesting system that you all installed, and what will that be used for?
Well, we do have 2 large cisterns that are rainwater catchment systems. So one is a 20,000-gallon tank, and that 20,000-gallon tank is feeding water up towards a smaller tank, which we call the demonstration tank. And this smaller tank is being used to feed the garden, what we call the demonstration garden.
Oh, so it will fully rely on the harvested rainwater then?
Yes, and it's been such a wet summer that 20,000-gallon tank has been full the entire time.
Really?
So we've been using nothing but harvested rainwater to feed the garden.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really cool, Sarah. So talking about all these exhibits in the garden, where are we at construction-wise? When can we expect the Education and Outreach Center to be open?
The Education and Outreach Center will probably start receiving exhibits right around September. Right now, construction on the building is pretty much done. We have a little bit of work to do for the aquariums yet, but all of the exhibits and displays are being manufactured off-site. We're working with a company out of Ohio, and so once those exhibits and displays are done, they're going to start shipping them in right around September, October. In November and December, things will probably slow down because of the holidays, but that'll give us plenty of time to start training our staff, learning how everything works. Maybe we'll have a soft opening and have certain groups come in, but our main goal right now is to have it open fully and operational by spring break of 2022.
That is awesome. And I know Ann-Margaret and I want to do a follow-up episode, maybe at the center when it's closer to opening, so we can get some more details on that. Well, very cool. And that brings us to our topic today, the Education and Outreach Center, which is this physical location where folks will be able to come and see these same things that we've been teaching about for the last 30 years.
Yeah, and there's a lot to see at the camp itself. I mean, the camp has a lot to offer right outside our building, there are stables, there's a rock climbing wall, there's a zip line, there's archery. So our building is uniquely situated in the middle of a really fun place.
You know that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, where I'm like, it takes a village to educate students, homeschoolers and groups of people. And I think, like we all mentioned, it's going to be a one-stop shop place for all things Edwards Aquifer related. They'll be able to learn that at a camp. And I feel like what a better place to learn something like that than on the recharge zone about the Edwards Aquifer.
Now, we still also, outside of our building, while we have the building being built, while construction is going on, we still have our online resources. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Learning Zone, which we created last summer. We started making videos. Our interns are really doing a great job with this, and they're doing activities and lesson plans and just simple, easy things that people can do if you've got kids at home or even classroom teachers. So these lessons are short, simple. They're usually done with things that you can find around the house. So, these are also great ways to prepare to before visiting the Edwards Aquifer Education Outreach Center.
Yeah, getting a little bit of a background on some of the things that will be communicated and educated to the people that visit, right?
Yeah, so if you can't come out to us, find us online and check out some of our activities, learn more about the Edwards Aquifer through some of our videos.
Sarah, thanks for joining us today and sharing with us all about the Education and Outreach Center. We look forward to joining you there at some point and having another follow-up podcast all about it.
It's always fun to talk to you guys. I look forward to it.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Recharge Zone podcast. Have questions, ideas for topics, or things you would like to share with us? Well, reach out to us at rechargezone@edwardsaquifer.org.